How's it going, everyone? This is Dixon of the Ultimate Gamer. I'm logging on and welcoming you to his radio show. I know it's been a while, but you know how that is at times. Today I want to talk about the recently announced compilation of Mortal Kombat games, Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. And so far, the collection is pretty interesting. Here are descriptions of the games. Yeah, I'm reading it from the Screen Rant because this is the site I found. I don't read anything from Screen Rant much, but this is pretty interesting though. Here are a list of different games that appear to be in the Mortal Kombat Legacy collection. The first Mortal Kombat game, 1992 arcade version, which is the well-known one, plus the Super Nintendo version, the Genesis version, the Game Boy version, and the Game Gear version. There's only one problem here is they're missing the Sega CD version. Sega CD version should be added to it. That's the only drawback about the first Mortal Kombat game that's in this collection is the lack of Sega CD. Well, so far. Now, there's also Mortal Kombat 2, which has the original arcade game, the Super Nintendo version, the Genesis version, the Game Boy version, and the 32X version. Oh, so at least Mortal Kombat 2 has an add-on version, which is the 32X version, but they don't have the Sega CD version of the first Mortal Kombat game. Why not? I don't fucking understand. But here's a drawback for console ports of Mortal Kombat 2 that are missing. Unlike the first Mortal Kombat game that has the Game Gear version listed here, but they don't have the Game Gear version of Mortal Kombat 2 listed here. And I do know there is a Game Gear version of that, because I had it on my Game Gear back in the day. And there was also a Sega Saturn port later on of Mortal Kombat 2. So 2 console ports of Mortal Kombat 2 are missing. Well, correction, 1 portable port and 1 console port that of Mortal Kombat 2 are missing. Now, Mortal Kombat 3. I noticed that the previous collections, they skipped out on the regular Mortal Kombat 3 and just added the Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 as part of the trilogy. But this time they have both versions of Mortal Kombat 3. So with the Mortal Kombat 3, they have the arcade port, the Super Nintendo port, and the Genesis port. Now, there's definitely some console ports and portable ports are missing. They did have the game on the Game Gear and the Game Boy. And they had a PlayStation 1 version of it, which was one of the launch titles for their PlayStation 1. I don't get it. And then there's the update of Mortal Kombat 3, which is Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and they only have the original arcade version and the Super Nintendo version. There was also a Saturn version, but I don't see it listed on here. But they don't have the Genesis version either listed on here either. There was a Genesis version. Okay, I think you get the point. Then there's Mortal Kombat 4, which is the arcade version. But no PlayStation or Nintendo 64 console ports listed on here. Whatever. And then there's 3 Game Boy Advance games. Mortal Kombat Advance, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, the Game Boy Advance port, and Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, which was released on the Game Boy Advance. So there's practically 8 games altogether, plus console versions of the arcade games. However, it's really disappointing that they don't have Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which is practically another updated port of Mortal Kombat 3 and Ultimate 3, which has precisely all the characters from all the previous Mortal Kombat entries you can play as. I mean, that's on the PlayStation and the Saturn, as well as the PC. But the N64 version's a different story, but that one should be on there too. And then there's also Mortal Kombat Gold, which was an updated port of Mortal Kombat 4, which was exclusive on the Dreamcast. Yeah, there's some versions that are missing, as well as some games. Also, not to forget the spin-offs, Mythologies of Sub Zero, that was on both PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64, and Special Forces, which was on the PlayStation 1. I know those spin-offs were not great games, but they should be part of the history they should be part of the collection at least try to have easier versions of them, like with save states and all that shit. There's also a third spin-out that came on the next generation, which is Shaolin Monks, which was the best one in the series. The best spin-off in the series. That was released on the original Xbox and PlayStation 2 console. Not to forget to mention, the console ports of Deadly Alliance, which was on PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. Even though the Conquest mode in that game sucks. Then there's also my favorite one out of all the 3D ones, which is Deception. That was released on all three of the consoles, plus an updated version on the PlayStation Portable, which is called Unchained. Hopefully they bring that one on there, because I really did like the way how they actually had a sandbox, kind of like RPG conquest game, where you actually can roam around all different realms, trying to fulfill your dreams to become a champion of Mortal Kombat. You know, you're a champion of the Elder Gods, but it's really one of the best features they added in a Mortal Kombat game in history. Plus they have the chess combat and the puzzle combat. And the 3D fighting was pretty good too. You know, the downside is lack of some playable characters that were featured in the previous game, Deadly Alliance. Of course, you get to fight them in the story, but you don't get to play as them, unless it's in the later Unchained version. Don't remember too much about the Unchained version that's on the PSP, but that one was pretty good, but that Deception one in the Unchained version was pretty good. Sorry, I'm not doing 100% good here. Oh yeah, what else is next? Also, the Armageddon, which was the last one that was a 3D one that was on that generation, Xbox, PS2, and the Wii console. Which is pretty much like a Deadly Alliance, no, not Deadly Alliance, but Deception. Except the graphics and the moves have been, and the fatalities have been more recycled compared to the Deception one. I mean, you get to play every single character in the game, but the fatalities have been kind of cut out of it, and so they added custom fatalities in it. And yeah, I don't remember too much about it. But however, the Conquest mode is still pretty good. It's more like they actually have more of a beat 'em up style, kind of like how the Shaolin Monks is. Plus, there's also a little motor combat, a little mini racing game, kind of like Mario Kart almost. That was a pretty cool feature they added. Of course, that was actually the last game that Midway did. Well, besides the spin-off with Warner Brothers, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. Which, in a way, that one was still pretty good in my book, though, even though they butchered out the violence because it's actually DC characters involved to make it more like a T-rated, family-friendly kind of like. But hopefully they add more of the Mortal Kombat games that are not listed on here, including the ports as well. I know it's a little early, but hopefully they'll add more of them into this whole list to make it complete from the first game to Armageddon, including the different ports if they're any different than the other. I mean, usually PlayStation and Xbox ports are pretty much the same, but usually the 16 ports are pretty different. So. When they did that with the first 3 Mortal Kombat games. Except they didn't do that Ultimate 3, you know what I mean. Anyway, that's pretty much all I gotta say about... Well, anyway, that's pretty much all I gotta say about this latest announcement of Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. It's a pretty interesting collection by far. But hopefully in the future, before they're released, they add more games onto there, including more console ports and portable ports of games that are not listed on here by far. Until then, this is all I gotta say. I'm looking forward for this collection. It's going to be available on all platforms, so thank you all very much for listening. This is Dixon of the Ultimate Gamer. I'm logging off.